the theme already this morning, the theme of the potter. So, since in college I did a little bit of pottery, I thought I would display some of my finest work. No, it's the only work I have actually. But in college, my undergrad major was in architecture. So I actually always wanted to be an artist, but I couldn't afford being an artist, so I thought, okay, what is the career that I can get closest to art and still have a paycheck? So, but all my electives were in the arts. So I ended up doing a little bit of pottery work, and sometimes I explore with leaving in some imperfections in the pottery. And since I was a student, I knew that I couldn't do the very fine work that my daughter would make. My daughter is also very skilled, very talented young woman in the arts. So she gave me this as a gift, and also this incense holder. She made it for me, but I think this is porcelain, right? Or is it really
it's clay. It's clay.
It's clay, okay. Very fine clay indeed. All right, I even thought it was porcelain. And I also learned this morning that Jesse gave Sally a...
No, it was Jared, my other
Jared.
grandson.
Oh, okay. He gave you some pottery
Yes.
for your birthday this week, huh?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And I think it was my first week here. Gracie gave me some work. It's a cross, and I have it on my desk, keeping my mass in place so it doesn't fly away. But so we have a lot of potters in this church, and they will attest that sometimes when you're working with clay, you mess up. You get distracted. You know, your thumb goes in the wrong way, and the whole thing explodes everywhere. Right? Or you press the pedal too hard, and right, you see a lot of people shaking their head. Yeah, the clay gets through your fingers, or when everything is running smoothly, but the clay has some rock in it, some little pebble. Then you have to remove it, and sometimes mush it all back together and start all over again. So this metaphor of the potter, this idea that we are made of clay, is one that I also addressed last Sunday a little bit with the children about us being made of dirt, right? Being made of clay. And that God breathed life into us, which is what made us special. But last Sunday's theme was humility, so we should not think that we are too special, right? Because after all, we are made of dirt. But another way of explaining humility was flexibility, right? So as clay, as long as the clay stays moist and flexible, the potter can work with it, right? The potter can reshape it. But when the clay gets rigid, really hard, it's almost impossible to work with it, right? The potter will throw some water and do its best, but if it's just too hard, the potter may have to throw away that clay. It's going to be tough. So this is a beautiful metaphor, right? And one really applicable not only to last Sunday's, and I didn't know that it was this sequence actually, so I feel very fortunate that it almost looks like it's a sermon series, which I intended for next Sunday, but once again we hear the call to be humble, understanding that we come from the earth, as the word Adam, it's the exact meaning of that word, from the earth. Remembering that we are from the earth. Remembering that God breathed life into us. So we are made from the earth, but also of the same stuff that the stars are Now that's special, right? I really love living in a place where I can look up in the sky and see stars. There's no pollution or glare from Empire State Buildings and things like that. So once again, we hear the call to remain flexible, to remain humble, and to allow ourselves to be reshaped and reshaped by the potter, by our divine potter. That's it. That's the message for today. I won't elaborate much more on it today, because Corky has already preached on it. We have a lot of potters here, so you understand the importance of remaining malleable and flexible and being one with the potter. If the clay starts going a different direction and the potter's hand is somewhere else, it's chaos, right? So God does come down and join us in our mess. God helps us taking out those pebbles, right? Those little bits of rock there. And when we're just too hard, God helps us. And sometimes those tears that we shed help us to be a little softer, a little more pliable. So that's a $5 word I just used, huh? Pliable. So God can help us get into the shape we're meant to be to contain the divine grace that is available to all of us. In the Jewish tradition, wink, wink, we are vessels. The whole idea is that we are vessels. And God is love and grace. So the only thing we're really required to do is to receive. To be ready. Right? To be reshaped by God. And once our receptacle is ready to receive that love and that grace. So I will stop right here because you also have another insert in your bulletin, the green one this time. It's beginning of the school year, so the worship team decided, well, what if we do a, what is it called? A pre-assessment test, something that the children are very familiar with. So we're doing a pre-assessment test because in order for us to know if we're flexible or not, right? In order to know if we are really doing our best to receive God's love and grace, it's important that we understand where we are, right? In our spiritual journey. So there's a pre-assessment test there that will help us assessing where we are in our spiritual journey, right? And there's a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, the best, right? According to the question. And there are some questions that assess how we're doing as one Christian body, as one church. Because it's not just us individually that needs to remain flexible and pliable and allow God's hands to reshape us. We as a community need to remain flexible and pliable, right? In doing what God is shaping us to do. So God's blessing can be inhabited, enjoyed in our church. Next Sunday we'll do with the church at large. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But so you have those assessments there. There are pencils right in front of your pews. We have more pencils and pens if the ones in front of you are not working. Mm-hmm. So the individual questions, go ahead and answer them. The ones about community, you're invited to talk to the person next to you if you like. And if you don't have one, please raise your hand and we'll make sure that you do. Oh, you have one.